All right, everyone, welcome. We're starting today's webinar. This is for the 2022 California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program. This is part of a series of weekly informational webinars that we're doing for the California Farm to School Incubator Grant. And we do them every week so that whenever you have questions at whatever point you're at in the application, you could come to us and we're here. So we're really excited for this week's session. The presentation lasts about 10 to 15 minutes, and then the whole rest of it is just Q&A. So time for us to talk and answer your questions and hear where you're at and how we can support you. So yeah, thank you all for being here today. Okay, next slide. As we start today's session, I want to communicate our culture. And it's weird to say that because culture is such a big picture thing, but this is how we operate in the Office of Farm to Fork. So that you know how to engage with us and how we can best support you. So as we were developing the grant program, we were reflecting on our practices. How can we simplify this grant? How can we help people apply? How can we celebrate and validate all the great important work that's happening throughout the state while also asking people to do more in the application, which is what it is. And then also, how can we create lasting impact with these grant funds? So those are the questions that we are always asking ourselves. So if you have questions, related to that or feedback related to that, we want to hear it. We want to hear all of it. And then we have guiding practices for how we implement and roll out our programs. We always want to offer support and technical assistance. So that's what these weekly webinars are, and our email inbox for questions and all of that. In addition to that, we do offer office hours and peer-to-peer learning sessions. So this is for our grantees and the broader California Farm to School network. We gather people together around topical issues. We have these office hours for grantees to provide support on reporting and best practices. And hey, what's going well? How can we celebrate that? What are you having a hard time with? How can we provide resources or support for you there? And then lastly, we do cross-pollination across the state. So we find people who are doing great things in San Diego and people who are doing similar things in Humboldt, and we connect them. And we say, hey, here's some great opportunities. Or we have someone who's experiencing a challenge in one issue area, and we connect them to somebody who has a solution. And we can do that to people across the nation and across the state. So if you have any questions like that, please just reach out. Okay, next slide. So for our California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program, I want to communicate the purpose and priorities. It's important that we start with why this grant program exists, and it will help you align in your application. So why does the project exist? The California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program will award competitive grants to support projects that cultivate equity, nurture students, build climate resilience, and create scalable and sustainable change. So those are our big goals. When you say, what's the funding going to do? It's going to do those 4 things. And then specifically, we have these funding priorities to help guide which projects will get awarded. So these are really important to take note of, these funding priorities, and to communicate them and reflect them in your application. Funding priorities: engage students from underserved communities, serve schools located among priority populations that are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So that's who you serve. The next pieces are who you partner with, or who you are, which is a small to mid-sized California food producer. So we'll prioritize projects with them. We'll prioritize projects with veteran California food producers, socially disadvantaged California food producers, and or limited resource farm households in California. And we'll prioritize projects that include California food producers who utilize climate smart agriculture practices. That includes climate smart agriculture production systems like certified organic or transitioning to certified organic, or other regenerative strategies that increase resilience to climate change, improve the health of communities and soil, protect water and air quality, and increase biodiversity and help store carbon in the soil. So you can see we're looking at who you serve as a school district, what students are you serving, what community are you serving, and then also who you partner with and what types of practices they're doing. So it connects climate and equity and access all together. Okay, next slide. There's 4 funding tracks that we're going to go through today. Yes, you can apply to multiple funding tracks. That's a common question we get. So yes, you can apply to multiple. And if you have an existing California Farm to School Incubator grant, you can apply again. Okay, next slide. Here's what to expect in this webinar: a brief overview of each funding track. So just one slide and then the scorecard, then a program timeline, and then a lot of time for Q&A. All right, next slide. So here's track one. It's the K through 12 procurement and education grant. And track one, you can see in this blue box on the side, there's a funding formula for it. So we're going to go over that. The funding formula is $10 per student enrolled in your school district, and you can apply for up to 150 grand, even if your formula is less than that. So we kind of are thinking of 150 as a minimum award, unless you want less, and then $1 million as the maximum award. Okay, and here's the purpose. Track one will fund individual public school districts, county offices of education, and direct funded charter schools in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school programs. These programs need to do both of these things. They need to coordinate school nutrition services with educational opportunities for students in cafeterias, classrooms, and outdoor learning spaces. And they need to procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart, and from small to mid-sized food producers, veteran food producers, socially disadvantaged food producers, and or limited resource farm households in California. So every application in track one needs to connect the cafeteria classroom, and it needs to include the cafeteria and classroom, and it needs to include procurement of California grown foods. Okay, if you want to, you can pay for staff. That's that bottom bullet there. So 150 grand we figured could cover a staff person for you to help increase that, deliver that work. Okay, next slide, please. In track one, we can go back to scorecard. So in track one, the scorecard reflects the funding priorities. So this is what I want to highlight for you, are the sections that are 40 points, 25 points, and 20 points. So 40 points is community need. That's who you serve as an individual school district, county office of ed, or direct funded charter school. That's who you serve. Tell us about your student population. Tell us about what your community. If you go into WiseHive, into the application portal, you'll see all the questions that we're asking for. The next highest point total is 25. That's for your project description. That's where you'll describe how you're connecting procurement and education and coordination with the cafeteria and classroom. Then there's 20 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. That's the section where we're asking you, who will you partner with for this application? Will you be purchasing from and working with small to mid-sized food producers, veteran food producers, socially disadvantaged, all of those people utilizing climate smart ag practices? That's 20 points. So just right there is over half the points for the application. And remember, as you're filling out your app, be looking at this scorecard and referencing it so you know that you're communicating effectively. Okay, next slide. Track two is the Farm to School Partnerships Grant. And track two will fund regional and statewide farm to school partnerships in California. The award amounts are $100,000 to $500,000. So these can be larger awards. You tell us how much you need. It's not a funding formula. In track two projects, in order to be eligible to apply, you have to do one of these three things. So we tried to create kind of containers for projects so that people could see themselves in this space. So the first option is to implement farm to school procurement and or education strategies as part of a larger regional or statewide food system development plan. So let's say you have a county level food system plan, you have a city level food system plan, it involves farm to school, and you want to apply to implement that. It's going to impact your city, your county, your region, whatever. It's going to have a big collective impact beyond just one individual district. There you go. That's your bucket in track two. The second option in track two is to increase collaboration and coordination regionally or statewide between California food producers and school nutrition services programs. So this is where you are serving as a go-between between multiple districts and multiple farms. And what we put in here is you would do that to increase procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially all those prioritized foods and working with prioritized farmers. So you can see that's an option in track two. We're kind of thinking of food hubs, collaboratives, and other similar type of projects in that track. Then there is the third option in track two, and it's provide farm to school procurement and or education, technical assistance, or capacity building support regionally or statewide to more than one farm to school implementing organization. So to more than one school district or more than one charter school or more than one county office of that. So you can see here that this is kind of like a support organization or a business that works with multiple districts. We try to create that container with this third option. The most important thing to know about the Track 2 funding is that it's about collective impact and it's about regional and statewide partnerships. So if it's just one organization and one school district, that is not like, we want to make sure it's a regional impact. That's all, more than one individual project. If you want to focus on an individual district, apply in Track 1. That's what that's for. Track 2 is for multiple people to partner together to create maximum impact to scale solutions. Okay, next slide. The scorecard for Track 2 should look familiar, huh? Look familiar to Track 1. So community need, project description, and healthy, equitable food system. Remember those categories, and remember that as you're filling out your application to look at the scorecard and see that. Hi, Leah. I see your question. I'm going to answer it here at the end, okay? I'm going to come back to it. Okay, next slide, please. Track 3 is the Farm to Early Care and Education Grant. And the awards in this track are $50,000 to $200,000. And Track 3 will fund child care centers in California and farm to early care education support organizations to establish new or expand existing farm to ECE programs. And those programs need to do 3 things. They need to coordinate food and garden-based hands-on learning and play opportunities for young kids, and if you want to, their families. They need to procure California-grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into meals, snacks, taste tests, and food boxes for young kids, especially foods that we're prioritizing, those culturally relevant, climate-smart foods, and foods coming from producers that we're prioritizing. And offer farm to early care and education technical assistance and or peer learning spaces to staff, teachers, and families. That way people have the support they need to actually implement these programs. If desired, you can employ staff. CDFA encourages Track 3 projects to incorporate parent and family engagement and to build connections with K-12 and CACFP programs. So we encourage that connection between all of them. Okay, next slide. In Track 3, you'll notice the scorecard is very similar again. 40 points for community need, 25 points for project description, 20 points for a healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So just remember, I'm saying we included this scorecard so that you know where the priorities are and what's important to develop in your application and to communicate clearly. Okay, next slide. Track 4 is our final grant program track that we'll talk about today. It's the Farm to School Producer Grant. The award amounts are $5,000 to $150,000. You tell us how much you need if you're a producer on the call today. And Track 4 will fund California food producers to increase production, processing, and or distribution of whole or minimally processed foods for the school food market. Track 4 will also fund California food producers to provide hands-on educational opportunities for youth that complement their food sales or donations to schools. In order to be eligible, a producer must show evidence of an established relationship with at least one school nutrition services department. So if you are on the call today and you're a producer and you don't have established relationships with the school nutrition services department, that means you're not eligible to apply for this round. And Michael on our team, he's on the call today. So he will provide you support connecting to a school district. This is a long-term strategy so that you can get that relationship built in a non-competitive way. You don't have to apply to get help from us. You just email us and we'll help you. So that's if you don't already have an established relationship. If you do already have a relationship with a school, then you're eligible to apply. Okay, next slide. And the scorecard for this one is different because the applicant would be different because this application will be coming from a farmer or a rancher or a seafood harvester, excuse me. So as you can see on this scorecard, there's 5 points for your relationship with the school nutrition services department, So if you're already having a successful relationship, you've already know each other and been working with each other, that's 5. 2 points for a description of food production history and farm to school vision. So how does farm to school fit into your farm or your ranch or your production practices? Project description is 15 points. So what are you going to do with the money? And then 25 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So this is, are you working with underserved communities? Are you working with priority populations? Are you a small to mid-sized farmer? Are you from one of our prioritized farmer groups, which would be BIPOC farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, veteran farmers, or anyone in a rural community who's in a limited resource farm household? And also, what types of production practices are you using? Are you utilizing climate smart ag? Are you organic or transitioning? Do you use regenerative practices? That's all in the application for you to outline. So those are the most important things. Then 8 points is project viability. So what's your budget? Does your budget align with your project description? And then how will you be able to sustain this beyond the duration of the grant? These are the questions that we're asking. Okay, next slide. Here's the timeline for all of the grants moving forward. The applications opened on May 9th. It's a very exciting day for us. And you can see that there's online application portals. So if you go to our website, you can see there's a bunch of drop-down menus for the grant, and one of them is online application portals. So you click that to access WiseHive. You'll then create an account and move forward with the application. We find that once people are in WiseHive, it's a pretty easy system, but sometimes people have questions about how do I log in, how do I create an account? And it's really great that Amy on our team, shout out Amy, created a she recorded herself doing it, a screen grab. So if you're having any questions about WiseHive or the online application portal, check out this video. Rachel just put it in the chat. Thank you, Rachel. So anyone can check that out if they need support with WiseHive. You can also email us and we'll support you there. Applications are due on July 6th. We will review them from July through August, and then in September, we'll send notifications. So we'll send all that out. Shout out, Amy. Amy is the best, awesome support. Thank you, Beth. And then from September through December, we will be working with those selected grantees to establish grant agreements. So that's when we're sending you a packet from the state. We're going to do like an onboarding call so that you know what to expect for that process and what it will be like. We'll ask and answer questions and finalize budgets and do all of that work. The estimated start date for these projects is December 1st. So if you wanted to, you could put for your project timeline to start December 1st. It doesn't have to start December 1st. You could start in February if you wanted to, but we wanted to give you the option for December 1 for a start date. The absolute end date for these projects is November 30th, 2024. So that's when they all have to end by. Okay, next slide. This is the last slide I think that I have for us to share today. And it's how can we help and how we cannot help. We get a lot of people wanting to brainstorm with us. So we wanted to add this in. So here's how we can help as CDFA staff during this time. We can answer informational questions about the grant via email and webinars. So if you have questions, you can email them to us. You can join these weekly Q&As to ask and answer questions in a public forum. We can introduce producers and school support organizations. So like we said, if you're looking for local farmers in your community, we can help you do that. Or if you're a farmer looking for a school that's interested in farm to school, we can make those connections for you. We can also provide technical support for the online application portal in WiseHive. So like I said, we have the video and you can email us for that as well. Here's what we can't do. We can't provide specific feedback on grant project ideas. So you can't like say, hey, I have 3 things that I'm thinking about. Which one do you think is best? What we would do in that scenario is say, look at the scorecard. Look at the scorecard and see which one aligns most directly. And we can't assist with writing the grant application. So we can't write the grant application for you. That's the other thing we can't do. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we're here at the questions moment. We are going to be going through questions together. You have 3 options really. One, you can raise your hand and we will call on you. So in order to raise your hand, you go to the reactions button at the bottom. You click reactions and then you click raise hand and it'll let you raise your hand and then we'll call on you. You can also put your questions in the chat, which we have a few questions in the chat. The third thing that you can do, if you would prefer not to do it on the call, is to send written questions to cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. So you just email us, and then we'll respond to you as soon as we have a response. So those are all the ways. So we're going to open up questions now. I know we have some questions in the chat, but if people want to raise their hand, they can do that too. Okay, I see no hands, so I'm going to the chat. First question I see is from Leah. Hi, Leah. Can you distinguish the difference between 2 and 3 in track 2? Both are working on procurement in a region or statewide manner, right? Hi, Leah. Yeah, they're both working on procurement in a region or statewide manner. They could both be doing that. It could also be like in that technical assistance bucket in track 2, that third option that we talked about. You might only have one small element of it is procurement, and it's more education focused. So that's why we wanted to separate the two. We're not scoring how well it fits into that category. And that's just to make sure that some people can see themselves in the application. Okay, and I see a hand up from Eric Span. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Nick. Thank you. I just have 2 questions. First question is, how much detail is needed when applying for the grant, specifically track 1? For example, we want to build out some garden spaces for educational opportunities for students that's on site. Do I need to spell out, like how much I'm going to spend on wood, how much shovels will cost, things like that? Or here's what I think the whole project's going to cost, and here's how we're going to use those dollars. So that's one question. Mm-hmm. The second question I have, this just came up as you were going through track 4. We currently have a on-site educational farm where that farm was producing eggs that we were purchasing in nutrition services. Would we be able to apply for track 4 for that particular farm, which happens to be in a school site, on a school site in a very high needy community?
Yeah, we'll start with that one. Does the school district run that farm?
Yes.
Then if the school district runs it, then they're not eligible to apply in track 4. You're eligible to apply in track 1 to support it.
Okay.
In that way. We're getting a lot of questions on this, which is awesome because it means that school districts are starting their own farms, which is really, really cool. And we're saying that if the school district owns the land, but they're leasing it to a farmer or a nonprofit org that's farming it and doing all the programming, and all the school does is lease it out, then that nonprofit or that producer that's leasing it, they could apply in track 4 because they're a producer. Because the intent of track 4 was to create those economic connections for farmers and schools to increase that sales capacity and partnership capacity. Track 1 is the one to build school capacity. So that's the difference there. And then for the budget detail and clarity, Amy, I want to tap you in here because you really worked with our grantees last round to define budgets and work through that process. Can you share and what you would think in that scenario for how much detail is needed?
Sure, thanks, Nick. Hi, Eric. That's a great question. So there is a budget worksheet template on the website, and you can also access it through the YSIVE online application portal in each funding track. And there's on that worksheet, there's instructions on the first tab, and then the following tabs include a different budget worksheet for each funding track. And then the final tab in that budget worksheet is an example. So it uses the track 1 worksheet and kind of puts in some examples of how one might fill that out. So it's important to note that it doesn't specifically apply to all 3 tracks, but you can definitely kind of get an idea of the level of detail in there. We do ask for more detail than the overall project budget. So we ask you to break it down by spending category. For example, in track 1, there's California food procurement costs as a category, and then there's farm to school education costs, there's contractual costs, there's indirect costs, and you don't have to fill out every category, but based on the types of costs that you're proposing for your project, you would kind of fill out those categories, break down the costs, fill in anything that's required, and then also kind of explain in a little paragraph why those costs are important for your project and how it relates to implementation, and kind of explain a little more about them. So the example tab we're hoping is helpful. And if not, then you can always come back with more questions or email us with more questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And don't put down the cost of wood. Don't put down the cost of each individual tool. Don't do that. It's not good for us. It's not good for you. We don't want to review that. And just know, if it's in your budget, we're going to stick you with it. So if you said wood is going to cost X amount of dollars, like we know that price is really variable right now. So, we're just looking for those costs. So use the example and then email. All right. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Next hand up that I see is Lynn Summers. Hi, Lynn. You got yourself off. How's it going?
It's going great. So thank you so much for having this. Mm-hmm. I guess my question, it may seem like I'm all over the place, but I'm not. Yeah. I am right now with Rialto School District. I am one of their experts that helps them with all of their stuff that they're doing with their gardens within one of their schools. But I also have just been commissioned to do something in another school district. So now I'm teaching in 2 different school districts how to hatch and develop and show chickens.
Cool.
So because of that, and I'm looking at this particular grant, how would that be something, because it's 2 different school districts, both areas are our target group that we're looking at, would I be able, because it's 2 different school districts, would I be able to apply because of that? Or does it have to just be livestock, or can I do it because of gardening? I just wanted to kind of ask before I start diving in.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so it seems like, based on what you're sharing, that there's 2 different ways that you could be involved in an application. The first way, I think, would be through track 1, where a school district, so you mentioned Rialto, so Rialto could apply and then write you in as a contractor. Hold on one sec. Lucas is saying hi. Okay, so you could apply, like the school district would apply in track 1 and then write you in as a contractor and your costs to do the work that you're doing with the school site there. So you could have each of the 2 districts that you're working with could apply in track 1 and write you in as a contractor. That would be allowable. The other way, in track 2, because you are working with multiple school districts, you would be, Amy, can we go back to that slide in track 2 for those options? So because you are working with multiple school districts and providing technical assistance and support, you're providing education technical assistance regionally, since it's multiple districts. So you could also apply in track 2 using that bottom, bucket as your category. So those are the options for you. And then do you have any other follow-up questions based on that? You're muted right now if yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, this is great. I will definitely be talking to both schools. I know. No, thank you. And I will email you if I have any other questions.
Okay, awesome. And, we work with Fossat and Christina at Rialto and their current grantees, and they were part of our Farm to School working group. So they should be informed here on this project too. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Leah, you were next in line with your hand up. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Fantastic. It's awesome.
Good. So I have a question about track 4. So I understand from reading through the allowable and unallowable expenses that a milk producer, for example, can't apply for funds to purchase the stainless steel milk dispensers, but that a school district can apply for funding for a stainless steel milk dispenser. It seems to me that it would require that the school district has to be, applying for a farm to school grant for that producer to work with them. So for example, like a producer couldn't really work with a district unless they have other funds, to get that stainless steel milk. I guess I'm just wondering why that distinction. Why is a milk producer not able to buy those stainless steel dispensers as part of their proposal and then like loan them out to the school district that they're partnering with or give them to them? I was trying to understand that reasoning better.
Yeah, is that in the RFA?
I believe so. I think it's like track 1, 2, and 3, they can buy milk dispensers, but track 4 can't. And I was just trying to, maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me ask Amy. Amy, do you know off the top of your head, or do we want to look into that?
We'll look into it. Yeah, we'll see if it's something that was in the RFA or possibly was something that was in the public comment responses or the Q&A. So we'll do some digging.
That would be great.
To get back to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, Leah? Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to Pauline now. Hi, Pauline. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. This is awesome. Look at how many people are here and want to apply. This is exactly what we're hoping for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Then it is as it should be.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, our program administrator, Darcy Ronsby, and myself, we would love to make an appointment with you or Amy or Amy or whatever, so that we can kind of round some things out since we haven't done this before with this. And is that a possibility to do that?
So we prefer if you email, like if you organize all the specific questions you have and you email them, then we can respond to you in writing. And then, if there's a lot of them, then it's easier over email. The reason why that's easier for us is because we can't give a competitive advantage to one applicant and our time can only go so far, so we couldn't talk to everyone in that same way. So if you put it in email and then we respond in writing, then we can post that online as part of the Q&A. And then everyone has access. So we prefer email. And then if it's only like, if you go through it and then you're like, oh, it's actually only like these 2 big picture questions, then you can come on a webinar here and we can just talk it out.
Right. Can you remind me of the email again, please? It's on something.
Yeah, it's cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. So Amy's
CDFA, she's putting it in there?
Yeah, cdfa.ca.gov. I always think of it as it increases in size. CDFA is the smallest, then there's C8, then there's the government.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
There you go. Okay, Brian, I see you on here next.
Hello, and thank you all for all just a quick question. For track 1, I'm just trying to clarify, the funds can be used directly to purchase food from California consumers. And you were saying to email you, do you have like a list right now of those farms that are interested in working with schools?
Of like the farms that are nearby? Yeah, what community are you in?
You're in Los Angeles. West.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic for connecting with farms because there's so many variables that go into it. So if you send us an email with some of the like size and scope things that you're looking at, then we can work to connect you to farm partners in your area. And if you have a specific geographic preference, for us at CDFA, we define local as within California. So there's almost 70,000 farmers in California. So it's a big list. So we always want to make sure that we're in alignment with your needs and connecting with farms that can actually meet what you're looking for, that way. So if you email us, that's great. And then for the types of foods, yes, it can pay for food procurement in track 1. And they have to be whole or minimally processed. And if they're minimally processed, 100% California grown and processed to everything within the state.
Okay, so it'd be wise to just email a list of like, here are the like the produce that we need, basically.
Yeah, if you have that thing ready to go, then we can work to connect you to farms or local agencies that can support.
Yeah. Does that include like meat production as well?
Yeah, we're only just starting on that, so we have some ranches though that we have worked with and that people can recommend.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. My old pal Kelsey next. Hi, Kelsey. How's it going?
Hi, Nick.
Yeah.
Going good. A couple of questions for you in terms of the different tracks. We will have some nonprofits that we work with that they're going to probably apply on their own, and our district would be listed as a supporting partner. But then we would also be applying for that same track, and we might be applying for similar funding to help support their project and or other projects. Can you give some information based on is that allowable? I know we can apply for multiple tracks, but I want to make sure, we'll work with our nonprofit partners to ensure that, what they're applying for in their budget isn't overlapping with what we're asking for, but we have different budgetary needs for the same project that our nonprofit partners have for the same project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Everything's always tangled together in these local food webs, so what we have said is, each project should have the ability to stand on its own.
Okay.
First I'll back up. Yes, you can all apply as you can be the lead applicant one time, and then you can be a supporting partner in as many as you want.
Okay.
So and we're talking about track 2 for everyone here. So that's all allowed. And then for each individual project that might be, taking one piece of that puzzle and putting it in place, each project should stand on its own and should be able to exist if one of the others was not funded. So I'll give that note. And then Amy, we just responded to this over email, and it was, what was the response that we just did?
Yeah, this is a great question about if, for example, in track 2, if 2 different projects from the same geographic area might be able to receive funding. And we don't have a perfect answer here because it's hard for us to know the answer until we know how many competitive or high scoring applications we receive in each funding track and which geographic areas those applications are representing. We do have, a part of the RFA and the review criteria. So I just want to highlight it that says that the CDFA is aiming to distribute awards geographically across California to the extent possible. So for that reason, we do encourage collaboration as much as possible, especially in tracks 2 and 3.
Right.
There you go.
Okay. So then my follow-up question, and then I won't take any more of your time, because you said each track should stand alone, or each project per se. We have a partner, a nonprofit partner that will be applying for track 4. I know as a district, I can't apply for track 4, but they're going to forward plant lettuce for us. So then I would like to use my funds from track 1 to purchase from track 4. So they technically don't stand alone. It's contingent on us both getting funding. Is that allowable then?
Yeah, I mean, technically it would be allowable for that application to get submitted, right? But then let's say it got funded, but then you weren't able to buy the stuff. That's what you're saying.
I'm gonna buy the lettuce regardless, but I'd like, if I get funding in track 1, I want the grant funds. So, I mean, they're not dependent. I mean,
yeah.
I guess that nonprofit partner is dependent on us buying their lettuce if they're going to forward plant for us. It's just a matter of what funding stream I'm using to purchase those lettuce heads.
Yeah, that's allowable. That's allowable. And we know how all this school meal funding is shifting, especially now.
Right.
Where a waiver could go through and then you can totally do it and you'd use this other bucket of money instead. So that's totally okay. And we know that especially in track 4, that the school district, the how that partnership's happening might adjust or shift. Right. But as long as that's why we're valuing the established relationship and trust that's there between the 2 partners. And that's why that's requirement in that track.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if anyone else has more questions, Brian, your hand is still up. Are you good? Or do you have another one? You're good. Okay. So then I'm going to go into the chat. Oh, Lauren, I see your hand is up. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Nick. I have a question in the chat. So are you going to go through all of the chat?
I'm going to go through it right now, but you can ask
Okay.
it. You're here. Yeah, we got time.
Oh, well, my question's in the chat, but I'll go ahead and ask, then you can skip that one. In track one, if we have a school farm that that the school food authority sometimes purchases from, and they don't always purchase all of the products, are we able to donate what's left to a food hub like a food bank?
Yeah, I think that would totally be allowable. And we would just ask you, to explain what you're going to do with the product in your application. So if you're like, yeah, we're going to use all of this stuff for, this is all of our farm to school product or whatever, and then the remaining product is going to go to this other location.
Okay,
You can
because
do
sometimes
that.
sometimes the school food authority will say they're going to buy so much and then they end up not needing as much. And so then we end up with a lot of extra products. So
yeah, you can totally do that. Yeah, and what we say is, the grant has strict parameters on what it can fund. So as long as it's a farm to school related activity, an activity that's directly related to your project, then you can use grant dollars to spend that.
Okay,
so
great.
If they went to the school and they dropped off everything they had as part of farm to school, and then the school actually didn't want all of it, so on the way back they stopped at the food bank and dropped off the rest, I would consider that still part of your project. It's not like its own run to the food bank, and they're operating this other part of the farm,
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then I see no more hands, so raise your hand if you'd prefer to talk it through. The first question I see in the chat is from Jen Allen, and it's for track 3. Can you share what a connection between a child care provider and CACFP would look like for this? I hand all track 3 questions to Amy. So Amy, can you describe it?
Sure. Hi, Jen. That's a great question. So just for everyone else on the call, I'm going to read the piece that I think you're referring to, which is in the for funding track section of the RFA for track 3, there's a line at the bottom that says the CDFA encourages track 3 projects to incorporate parent and family engagement and to build connections with K-12 and the Child and Adult Care Food Program, which is the meal program in childcare centers. So if that's something that you want to do in your project, build connections with the CACFP program in track 3, then part of the goal of track 3 is to procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods from California producers and then incorporate them into meals or snacks. So if you have a CACFP program, that could be a way to build the connections, is to procure that local food and then incorporate it into your CACFP meal program. And then another part of the goal of track 3 is to coordinate food and garden-based hands-on learning and play for young children and if desired for their families. So that could be another way to build connections, to have food and garden-based learning that relates back to the local food that's being served in the CACFP meals.
Any follow-ups, Jen? Follow-up questions? Okay, I don't see any in the chat just yet. Amy, can you see at the bottom of the chat?
Oh, cool. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, good. All right. So the next question I see is from Derek. Hi, Derek again. In track 4, does an applicant have to prove they own or lease property in California? For example, including a copy of the lease? I don't think so. Amy, does they have to include? No. So you just check a box, I think, and say, yes, I'm doing that. Okay, the next question is from Alma. Hi, the funding is only for 24 months. Do you foresee continued funding to continue the program? So this year we have $25.5 million to give out for the grant. Next year, we'll have another 25.5. Possibly next year, we would have like 55 million. So we for sure have another round of grant funding next year. So yeah, at least one more year. And then we're hoping for more after that. We might call on you for some help later. Okay, Brian. Okay, I got you, Brian. I covered that one. That was in the chat, right? We're good. Okay. And then Beth, do you have any directional info regarding how much money will be awarded in each track? And are you more likely to fund more projects at less than full request or fewer projects at full request? These are all such great questions that I wish I could answer. We don't know exactly until we see how many applications are going to come in each track. In general, I say we prioritize track 1 projects the most, but like it's going to depend on the request amounts and how big the projects are and how much overlap there is across them and all of that stuff. So what we can see is how many people have created accounts in WiseHive. So that's it right now for each application. So we're still checking it out, but yeah, we don't really know. Sorry. Okay, Marjorie, you have the next one. If an LEA has their own preschool programs, can they apply for track 3? Yes, they can. They can apply in track 1 and they can apply in track 3 if they want to, so that you can maximize your impact there for those 2 areas. The reason why we've separated them out is because we learned that early care and education is entirely its own universe. They have their own letters, you know, they're not NSLP, they're not SBP. So there's its own letters, its own universe, its own set of organizations. So that's why they're separated. And yes, they can apply in track 3. Okay, Francis, I'm to you. It's not too long. I was going to ask you to come off mute, but no, we can read that. Okay, in track 2, we are a nonprofit applying as the implementing organization. But a significant portion of the funds would be a pass-through to fund salaries for a joint power authority preparing to take over school food service for our area. It's an LEA, so should those dollars be reflected in our budget in the contractors section? Ooh, I'm not exactly sure. Amy, do you know, or do we want to think about that one and come back to it?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Francis. I think we'll think about that one and then we'll get back to you via email. And for everyone else on the call, we're posting a weekly Q&A on the website, so it'll be reflected in that Q&A, whatever our response ends up being.
Yeah. And do you still have your follow-up question, or because we didn't know?
It depended on your answer. It depended on your answer to the first one. So once we get that, then I'll.
All right, so then we'll move it to email. Thank you so much for joining and breaking that here today. There's so, I can tell you that, we never had the intention of having like a 50-page RFA and 4 different funding tracks. But what we've learned through this process is that every scenario is so unique. And everybody has their own different element, like, oh, it's a school district run farm, the district leases it, and they have a quarter-time employee who leases to the full-time. It's like, oh no, what are we doing? I don't know how that fits. What's going to happen? So we really appreciate all of this patience for everyone and expertise that they bring from their community to help us figure out how it fits into the funding. So thank you. Okay, Jen Allen, I see another question here. For track 3, are there specific requirements, qualifications for the Farm to ECE support org? Amy?
Hi again, Jen. That's a great question. So first, I would direct you to the eligibility section in the RFA, and let me find the right page for track 3. So page 16 of the RFA, and Rachel, maybe you can put the link to the RFA in the chat so everyone has it handy. Page 16 talks about eligibility for track 3, and it has a whole list of Farm to ECE support organizations that would be eligible in that bucket. So you can refer to that for requirements for Farm to ECE organizations. And then otherwise, I would just direct you to the track 3 application questions and review criteria, and you'll kind of see the first few questions are specifically geared toward eligibility. So first it asks you, like, do you fit any of these types of organizations? And it's basically the list from page 16 in the RFA. And then it asks you maybe 1 or 2 questions more, and then it'll tell you if you're eligible or not to continue.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for handling that one. Okay, and then I see Lauren's question, which we answered. Thank you, Lauren. And then I have a question. It's a direct message to me from Susie. For field trips to farms or farmers to the schools, it's listed under educational costs and under travel costs. Does it matter where we decide to put that? I would say if it's related, well, let me ask and make sure. Amy, does it matter to you as this person who reviewed all the budgets and helped coordinate all that?
If it's the travel cost itself, like paying for mileage or paying like renting a bus or something to transport everyone, then I think that would probably fit best under travel costs in the budget. And if it's for the like educational activities that you're going to be implementing during those field trips, then that might fit better under the like education costs section, or the education costs would be in track 1. In track 2, it might be under infrastructure, materials, and supplies and equipment. Yeah, and if as you're working through the budget, you like have more specific questions, we're here to support with that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then the next thing in the chat is an offer to help. So we love that. So Brian from earlier, Leah Smith said that she can help with sourcing beef and meat. So there you go. That's rad. And then we'll follow up with you too with what we know. And then I see another question on, can we braid funding tracks? I love this question. For example, we're a small school district, which would be like $150K award, and our tier 1 grant can cover staffing and on-site implementation costs. Can our local farm apply as tier 4 partners? Same question. Oh yeah, tracks. Yes, that's exactly what we're hoping can happen, is that the school district can apply to implement farm to school to get the support that they need and handle all their specific needs. And then the producer track can support on the producer side to make things easier for the school and help the producer scale up their production. So that can totally happen, where a local farm is applying in track 4 to support your district, and you're applying in track 1 to support local farms. Yeah, for sure. Love that. Okay, and then I just see a lot of thank yous. All right, so more thank you. Let's see until we get back to the real question. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Rachel put the RFA in there. And then Marjorie's follow-up. If our nutrition services provides the meals to the preschools, is their school district still eligible for track 3? Amy, does that count?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Marjorie. So as an example, if you're a school district and your nutrition services department is both preparing and serving meals for the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program, and preparing and serving meals for the Child and Adult Care Food Program, that school district, would be eligible to apply in track 1 for the K-12 procurement and education grant, and the school district could even integrate ECE and preschool into their track 1 project. But then if that school district is interested in maximizing funding for farm to early care and education, like Nick was saying earlier, the school district can apply in track 3. And the thing to keep in mind when applying to multiple tracks for anyone interested in applying to multiple tracks is just to make sure that the projects aren't duplicative, so that the projects aren't, funding the same, applying to fund the same costs or to do the same exact activities. There should be distinction, so if a school district is applying for track 1 and track 3, there's distinction in what the track 3 project will fund and the track 1 project will fund.
There you go. Thank you so much, Amy. And then Malaya, I see you in the chat. Thank you. This could be helpful for so many small farms and small schools in our area in Mendocino County. That is really heartening for us to hear. We, like I said, each unique community has its own unique elements. And to try to create these funding tracks that are broad enough that can support all of that different stuff while also providing the specificity to give you what you need so that you can apply effectively. It's a lot. So thank you so much for validating that. And we hope that we get a lot of small schools and small farms applying. So that would be great. All right, and then I see one more question in the chat, and it was a direct message actually. Where do we get the list of farms in our area? This is awesome, and thank you for all that we're doing. So the list of farms is an interesting question. So there's a bunch of ways that we can do this, and it really depends on your needs. So this is kind of like a broader question. I would say it's kind of related to the grant. But it's also about the support structures that CDFA can offer through the California Farm to School Network and our staff. So, we have a list of every farm that's certified to sell at a farmer's market. And that list is organized by county. So it's mostly small farmers in your county, everyone who's eligible. And that list is updated every month by CDFA, depending on who's licensed still. So that's the list of all the small farms. We could give that to you like tomorrow, but then you would have 200 farms to look through. So because that list is so big, then what we do is we have like a layer of partners in your area. So let's say you're in San Diego, then we have like the San Diego County Farm Bureau. We have the Resource Conservation District in your area. We have a nonprofit called the Farm to Institute Collaborative that can help you connect with local farms that are already selling to other schools. We know some food hubs. So then there's that layer of like relationship. So we have a broad list, then we have a relationship layer that we can talk to you about. So it's not as easy as like, hey, here's a list of 60,000 farms, you know, that wouldn't help anyone actually. So that's how we have it. So if you're interested in how we can support you on that, just email us, and then Michael on our team will circle up with you and walk you through those resources. And like Leah is on the call today from Friends of the Earth, a consultant with Friends of the Earth. They're one of our nonprofit partners that we go to, as well as CCOF, the organics group in California, and others. So lots of options. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Beth. Somehow this always happens. It's 10:59. So perfect timing. Thank you, everyone. Please stay on after if you have additional questions or if you want to talk anything through, but we're really grateful for all of you, and hope to see you next week if you have more questions. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.